In the afternoon sun at Utah Valley University, a crowd gathered, students, supporters, skeptics, for words that delivered comfort to some, provocation to others. The speaker, Charlie Kirk, young, bold, polarizing, but that day would not end in applause. Instead, a single gunshot would shatter not just his life, but a fault line in American discourse. This is the story of how a voice once amplified became silent, and what echoes in its wake. Charles James Kirk was born October 14, 1993, in Arlington Heights, Illinois. His father, an architect, and his mother, a former trader turned mental health counselor, raised him in a home steeped in values and expectations. From adolescent years, he gravitated toward conservative ideas, listening to talk radio, vocal in high school debates, pushing against what he saw as liberal bias in textbooks. He briefly enrolled at Harper College but withdrew. He would never complete a traditional degree. At 18, Kirk co-founded Turning Point USA with mentor Bill Montgomery. From a garage, with no money and no roadmap, Turning Point grew quickly. Chapters on high schools and colleges, lectures, prove me wrong tables, media presence. Kirk's public persona was a blend of firebrand, provocateur, faith shaper. Over time, his Christian nationalism and religious identity became more overt in his messaging. He spoke of culture wars, free speech, identity, and the tyranny of progressive ideology. He rallied young conservatives to counter university liberal hegemony. Supporters saw him as fearless, a defender of speech, a voice for the misunderstood. Critics saw him as incendiary, unyielding, often inflammatory. In his personal life, married to Erica in 2021, father to 2 children, he balanced family with his public crusade. Kirk's identity was never just politics. It was performance, faith, confrontation, and ambition spun together. September 10, 2025, Kirk embarked on his American Comeback Tour, speaking on campuses. At Utah Valley University, he addressed students about mass shootings, culture, and ideas. He was engaging. A student had approached him, asking for thoughts on violence. Mid-dialogue, a shot rang out. The bullet struck his neck. He fell. Chaos, panic, cameras rolling. The suspect, Tyler James Robinson, was later arrested and charged with aggravated murder, obstruction, discharge of firearm. Prosecutors indicated evidence, DNA on the trigger, ballistics, texts, but Robinson has not fully cooperated. Investigators allege the shooter was positioned 130 to 142 yards away, on a roof or open window in the Losi Center building, targeting Kirk from distance. His killing was condemned across the spectrum. Media flooded with reactions, some grief, some celebration, most in shock. Tyler James Robinson. Little is publicly known about his full biography as of this recording. What has emerged is sparse but telling. He reportedly admitted, in statements, that he acted because Kirk spreads too much hate. This is the clearest public motive cited. His planning suggests premeditation, choosing location, weapon, time. Some reports mention text messages and digital footprints showing obsessions with rhetoric and animus. Was he radicalized online? Did he see himself as moral judge, executioner? Psychological profiles of perpetrators in politically charged violence often show a pattern. Deep resentment, alienation, perceived moral injury. For Robinson, likely, Kirk's voice was not just a target. It was an enemy in his worldview. In his mind, he may have believed he was stopping speech that he viewed as harmful. The paradox, silencing speech by committing violence. Before, the United States was already on edge. Ideological camps increasingly tribal, speech sharpened like blades, each side seeing the other as existential threat. Supporters of Kirk felt overlooked, censored. His presence was affirmation. Critics felt threatened, outraged by what they saw as hate, misinformation, exclusion. The culture wars obtained new significance. For many, it wasn't just politics, it was identity and survival. After the shock of gun violence upended assumptions, the phrase thoughts and prayers returned with new weight. Supporters see Kirk as martyr, an example of what happens when ideological dissent is seen as threat. His death became symbolic, galvanizing. Critics mourned life lost but also cautioned. The tragedy shows how extreme rhetoric can escalate fury. The national debate turned to gun culture and gun control. Some argue that access to rifles, weak regulation, and immunity give latitude to the violent. Others counter that owning arms is a constitutional right and defense against tyranny. This killing sits at the intersection, a political assassination made possible by lethal tools, in a society where guns are everywhere. Emotionally, many feel heightened fear of public events, speech, campuses. Some carry guilt. Could warnings have been heeded? Others carry anger. How many more must die before we act? The polarization deepens. One side views calls for regulation as censorship. The other views denial of regulation as moral abdication. Kirk's funeral was held in Arizona, at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. Thousands attended. His widow Erica spoke publicly, tearful, defiant, forgiving. His body was flown to Arizona on Air Force-style transport, accompanied by dignitaries. The ceremony became both memorial and movement moment. Flags, speeches, the assertion that life must continue forward. He was buried or laid to rest, amid both grief and invocation. Your voice may be silenced, but your cause lives, and that is your legacy. His vision for Turning Point USA might have reached its turning point, but for the love of man, his content and activism will live. Death is in the body, but the voice and the words will echo for eternity. In the hush after mourning, there is a reckoning. The voice that once filled auditoriums now echoes silently in our minds. Some will say Kirk was a hero wrongly taken. Others, that his presence fed the fire. But perhaps the greater tragedy is not only his death, it's that we're still asking how many voices must fall before we question the fire we light, the language we use, the weapons we allow, and the wounds we leave behind. Let this story not be the last chapter, but a challenge to speak responsibly, to listen fiercely, and to guard life even in disagreement.